Prabhakar Pendse. This morning, Prabhakar is going to use the Advanced Manual of Interpretive Reading, project number 2, which is interpretive poetry. The objectives are to understand the difference between poetry and prose and to apply vocal techniques to interpret the poet's imagery, rhythm, rhyme, and emotions in the poetry. He will give short introductory comments about the event the poet is describing and a short sketch of the poet. The title of the poem is The Charge of the Light Brigade, and the time is 6 to 8 minutes. Please help me welcome Prabhakar.
Prabhakar.
I think it was in high school that I must have read this poem. Cannon to left of them, cannon to right of them, rode the 600. I loved the forceful and strong language. But that time I wasn't curious enough to find out who wrote it, what was its background, what is it all about? So, in order to effectuate my speech, I Googled. And sure enough, I found something about Crimea, Crimean War, and Alfred Tennyson, the great poet. Now, Crimea is a small little country south of Ukraine, and it borders Russia. So it has got a strategic geopolitical situation or location. So that has been a hot topic and hot point of conflict for centuries. During 1853 and 1856, there was a big war between the Russia on one side and England and France and Ottoman Empire on the other. That was the Crimean War or the Great Crimean War. And that was the first modern war, they say. And why? Because they first time used high effective rifles and cannons. There was no air power. They used steam engines for the ships they used. There was telegraphic communication started. So there was one war correspondent named William Russell who was right on the scene, and he would telegraph the information to London Times. They would publish it next day or following day. Florence Nightingale, the great nurse, she persuaded and promoted cleansing the wounds and dressing them right away would help the recovery of thousands of soldiers. She was in that war. So these were the things they called it the modern war. Now Alfred Tennyson was from England, great poet. He grew up in a family with some tensions. His father was alcoholic and hot-tempered. So you have to be very careful. He was shy and sensitive child. But the father also was a preacher, and he loved Greek and Latin and English poems. So he, and in fact his wife also, they read poems to Alfred as well as his two brothers. Now Alfred started writing poems at the age of 6. And by 18, he and his brothers had published a book. So he became a well-known poet. Later on, Queen Victoria gave him the title of Poet Laureate of England, and he reigned with that title for 40 years. He wrote so many poems. He wrote from the heart. He described the land, the scenery, friendship, love, grief, all in very sensitive manner. And then on October 25, 1954, during this Crimean War, some arrogant and incompetent British officer ordered his Light Brigade, 600 plus cavalrymen, to charge into the valley, a narrow valley which was protected by 2,500 or 3,000 Russians with cannons and rifles. They told him to charge. Of course, the result was horrendous. Blood, gore, bodies all over. William Russell noted these things, sent it by telegraph to London Times. There was a report. And Alfred Tennyson was devastated. And in that mood, somber mood, with the sadness and grief, he wrote this poem. The Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Tennyson. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward. All in the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade. Charge for the guns, he said. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade. Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldiers knew someone had blundered. There is not to make reply. There is not to reason why. There is but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell. Boldly they rode well into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell, rode the 600. Flashed all their sabres bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabring and gunners there, charging an army, while all the world wondered. Plunged in the battery smoke, right into the line they broke. Cossacks and Russians reeled from the sabre stroke, shattered and sundered. Then they rode back, but not the 600. Cannon to right of them, cannon to left of them, cannon behind them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, while horse and hero fell. They that had fought so well came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell. All that was left of them, left off 600. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made! All the world wondered. Honor the charge they made. Honor the Light Brigade. Noble 600.